Coming up today, a fourth person in Korea dies of the MERS virus as the number of confirmed cases increases by 5, bringing the total to 41. Hundreds more remain in quarantine. Korea says it's pouring all its efforts into making Japan acknowledge the forced labor of Koreans in wartime facilities Tokyo once listed as the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Plus, in an unusual move, the International Monetary Fund asks the US Federal Reserve to wait until the first half of next year to start raising interest rates. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Friday, the 5th of June. You're tuned into our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thanks as always for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. And we start with the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS, outbreak in Korea. 5 more cases were confirmed early Friday morning, bringing the total number of cases now to 41. On top of this, a fourth person, a 76-year-old man, died of the virus overnight, but no word yet on whether he had any underlying health conditions. Also, there's brewing controversy after the mayor of Seoul said, after an emergency meeting on Thursday night, that a doctor with MERS symptoms attended heavily populated events in the capital. Now, we have our Kim Hyun-bin standing by at the news center with all the latest for us. Hyun-bin.
Good afternoon, Mark. Concerns are rising in Seoul after the city learned that a doctor at a local hospital took part in a large-scale conference and other social activities over the weekend, despite showing minor symptoms of the virus. The doctor said earlier today that the news announced last night by Seoul Mayor Park Won-soon is misleading and false, and the mayor did not consult with him beforehand. The mayor has said the doctor came into direct and indirect contact with more than 1,500 Seoul residents before being confirmed with the infection 3 days later on Monday. The doctor said he did attend several events before May 31st, but said he had no symptoms of the disease at the time. And even if he had known, the virus he contracted from the second patient was in the incubation period before then. Health officials have said the virus is not contagious during the incubation period, which is 14 days. Let's hear what the doctor had to say.
On May 29th and 30th, I had minor coughing and phlegm, but that is due to my rhinitis allergies. I had some symptoms of the virus on May 31st, so I asked to have myself put under quarantine. I have not had contact with anyone since 3 o'clock in the afternoon on that day.
The health ministry said on Friday that it had received the names of over 1,500 people who have had contact with the doctor.
And Hyun-bin, during an emergency briefing this morning, the health ministry finally announced the name of the hospital that treated the first MERS patient. What did they have to say?
Well, the Ministry of Health and Welfare released the name of the hospital, Pyeongtaek Hongmo Hospital, with the first case of the virus. What's surprising is that they found traces of the virus in an air conditioner filter in the doorknob of the room of patient 0. Authorities are checking to see if the virus could have been spread through the air conditioning system. So far, health authorities have placed over 1,600 people in quarantine, about 1,500 in their homes, and the rest in state-run medical facilities. Another measure, more than 1,100 schools have decided to temporarily close for the remainder of the week, with the majority of them in Gyeonggi-do province, where the first MERS case was reported. As of now, there are no known cases of people contracting MERS outside of hospitals.
Well, Hyun-bin, despite that fact, that last thing you said there, people in Korea are understandably concerned with the steadily increasing number of cases we're seeing here in Korea. For people watching, what are some of the symptoms the public should be looking out for, and how can we help protect ourselves?
Well, Mark, most people infected with MERS develop a severe acute respiratory illness, which includes a high fever, coughing, and shortness of breath. Now, experts are advising the public to wear a mask when heading outdoors. They also advise people to wash their hands and feet regularly. Now, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, MERS is a new form of viral respiratory disease that was first found in Saudi Arabia in 2012, but has since spread to several other countries. Back to you.
Well, thank you, Hyunbin, for the report there. Now, the presidential office says it's very concerned about the public's growing anxiety and confusion about the MERS outbreak. This following Seoul City Mayor Park Won-soon's press briefing last night. An official at the top office said there's a disparity between what the mayor and other people have said about an infected doctor in Seoul having come into contact with some 1,500 people. The official added that the facts must be clarified and said the health ministry and the Seoul city government should cooperate to provide the public with correct information so there aren't any unnecessary misunderstandings. In other news, prosecutors have arrested a former ruling party official as part of their widening investigation into the so-called Songwan-jong bribery list. The prosecution said Friday that it has put the 54-year-old former official with the family name Kim under emergency arrest. They did so on Thursday night. This on suspicion of receiving 200 million won, that's roughly $180,000 in illicit political funds from the late chairman of Gyeongnam Enterprises sometime during the 2012 presidential election. Now, Kim was in the Saenuri Party's election camp at the time of the presidential race. Prosecutors, however, said they are yet to figure out the exact timing of the alleged money exchange. Now, as Japan seeks to list several wartime facilities as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, Korea is bolstering efforts to ensure the full history of the sites are disclosed. This as tens of thousands of Koreans were forced to labour in those very facilities. Hwang Sang-hee has this report.
Korea is doing all it can to make sure Japan acknowledges Tokyo's forced labor of Koreans during its bid to list several wartime facilities as World Heritage Sites. Second Vice Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol told reporters in Paris on Thursday that Seoul is basing its argument on a recent recommendation by a UNESCO advisory panel. The International Council on Monuments and Sites said last month that Japan must ensure the entire history of the sites is known to the visitors. In its bid to have 23 industrial facilities inscribed on UNESCO's famous list, Tokyo initially marked them as being operational from 1850 to 1910. This angered Seoul since nearly 60,000 Koreans were forced to work at 7 of the sites during the 1940s. Korea was under Japan's colonial rule from 1910 to 1945. The Korean diplomat said Japan is now in a position where it cannot ignore the recommendation. He added that UNESCO member countries are asking the two neighbors to reach a compromise. In an attempt to resolve the issue, officials from Korea and Japan met in Tokyo last month. Japan reportedly said it will respect the panel's recommendation, but did not lay out the specific steps it plans to take. The two sides will hold a second round of talks in Seoul this month, where Korea is expected to urge Japan to disclose the full history of the sites. The final decision will be made during a meeting of the World Heritage Committee early next month in Germany. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
North Korea has released a new video that shows the test firing of a ballistic missile from a submarine. And this time the footage is much clearer and seems to verify the regime's earlier claims that the launch was not only real, but a success. Our Son Jung-in has more.
A submarine floating on the sea surface gradually dips below the waterline. Shortly after, a missile soars into the air with a loud blast. We then see North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, who oversaw the launch aboard a nearby boat, celebrating the seemingly successful test firing with other officials. North Korea's state-run television aired this new video on Thursday, nearly a month after it first claimed to have test-fired a new submarine-launched weapon.
As the development of the missile is complete, we now possess a world-class strategic weapon that can hit and eliminate enemy forces that attempt to harm our autonomy and dignity.
Although the state-run media did not specify a date or location for the test, the latest footage is certainly different from the still pictures it previously released. Those images raised doubts among some international military experts who claim they had been altered to exaggerate North Korea's progress in SLBM development. However, the latest video shows the whole process of the underwater launch, which is seen as verifying Pyongyang's progress in regards to submarine ballistic missile technology. This latest revelation also seems to support earlier statements from South Korean officials who said the North's footage and other photos of the missile launch were authentic. South Korea's military forecasts it will take 4 to 5 years for the North to fully develop and deploy the SLBM. Officials added that they're drawing up defensive measures to counter the threat. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Now, the International Monetary Fund has a message for the US Federal Reserve. Don't do it, at least not now. The head of the IMF has taken the unusual step of asking the Fed to wait a while before raising interest rates from near zero, citing the slowing US economy and low first quarter growth. Our Shin Se-min reports.
A warning from the International Monetary Fund urging the U.S. Fed to hold off on its rate hike until next year. IMF Chief Christine Lagarde said there is still too much uncertainty about economic growth and job creation and raised concerns about inflation.
Regardless of the timing, higher U.S. policy rates could still result in significant market volatility with financial stability consequences that go well beyond the U.S. borders.
IMF analysts also said waiting too long could cause inflation to rise too quickly, while waiting a little longer would provide valuable insurance against the risk of disinflation, policy reversal, and ending back at zero policy rates. They're also worried that the U.S. won't reach the Fed's 2% target until mid-2017. The Fed has held the rate at near zero since the financial crisis in 2008. Her comments come at a time when the Fed had been showing signs that it would delay a rate hike until there are stronger signs of a recovery. Fed Chair Janet Yellen had previously suggested that the central bank would raise rates for the first time in nearly a decade near the end of the year if the economy was growing steadily. But the U.S. economy shrank to 0.7% in the first quarter and growth projections are murky. The fund estimates 2.5% growth this year for the U.S. economy, higher than Wednesday's OECD report that slashed growth to 2% from 3.1%. The think tank said the strong dollar is dragging the economy down. All eyes are on the next Fed committee meeting scheduled for mid-June, as the Fed chair may provide some indication of whether she will continue with the initial plan to raise the rate, and if so, when and by how much. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
US officials are investigating a massive hack that may have compromised the personal information of up to 4 million current and former government employees. Investigators strongly suspect that hackers working for the Chinese state were responsible for the attack, described as one of the largest thefts in US government data in history. Federal agencies announced late Thursday that the breach was first detected back in April at the Office of Personnel Management. They added, however, that the intruders are no longer in the system. Agency officials say the hackers gained access to employees' social security numbers, job assignments, performance ratings, and training information. They could not say for certain what data was actually taken, but the information could be used to facilitate identity theft or fraud. Now, marking the occasion of Patriots and Veterans Month, as well as the 60th anniversary of Korea's Memorial Day this weekend, the National Cemetery in Seoul has become the site of a huge light installation. Na Hyung-kyung has a story.
It's a sight you won't want to miss. 3 vertical columns of light will be lit every day through Memorial Day on Saturday in remembrance of those who sacrificed their lives to bring freedom and peace to the Korean peninsula. The Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs says the beams will be projected straight up into the sky after sunset each day.
I hope many people, by looking at these 3 sets of beams, will remember and thank those who brightened our history.
Each of the 3 columns represents something different. The first set of beams is dedicated to those who have fought to protect the country, for example, those who gave their lives in the Korean War. The second pays tribute to those who have devoted their lives to the country's security, such as police and military officers. And the last set represents the wish for a peaceful reunification of the two Koreas.
In addition, around 25,000 small lights are planted on the ground around the gravestones in the cemetery. They will be lit for the entire month to remind visitors that each and every person buried here gave their lives to make this country a better and safer place to live.
The installation marks the beginning of a massive 70-day-long campaign to show appreciation for the people who dedicated their lives to Korea. The campaign will run through Liberation Day on August 15th and will include a massive parade in the heart of Seoul later this month. 나현경, Arirang News.
Now, that's pretty much all we have for now, but just a reminder that we will be bringing you live coverage of President Park Geun-hye's Memorial Day speech from around 9:50 a.m. Korea time on Saturday here on Arirang TV. She'll be leading the nation in remembering the South Koreans who lost their lives fighting for their country. Do have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye.